For some reason, it's not raising it up right here. Sculpt. Oh, see? Gotta be aware of what you're doing. Everybody makes mistakes. Had it on smooth. It's not gonna raise if I'm on smooth. So I'm just going through, obviously, and just building this little mountainous area. I think we already used that edge, so let's go with a different edge. Okay. So now I have a little mountain area. Now that we've created this new level, if you're going to want to see it in the level, maybe we have to remember we have to change our streaming method. So when you're on that level, right click, change streaming method, go from blueprint to always loaded. So I can see it now. But you can see how I just really quickly, just by using the same rock, I was able to create a little mountain formation. And then it's just up to how detailed you want to make it. And exactly what kind of look you're going for. We probably don't want everything so smooth here. Because not everything is smooth. You'll have jagged stuff. You'll have depressions in your landscapes. If you're ever, trying to make an extremely realistic landscape, I would always look up images on Google, especially get inspiration from something real. There's tons of images out there, so definitely are able to use that as a resource to get something that will look like whatever it is you're really trying to build. I'm probably going to change this back to a green. Have a nice grass. Plus, you could always add multiple materials if you have different landscapes. So if I created another landscape and put it like over here, there we go. Sorry. Forgot where they put it for a second. So you could create another landscape, put it here, and then have a different material on it. So maybe we're in a desert area all around. And then maybe there's like this little utopia in the middle. So let's just imagine that this will all be covered. This will be a giant model of like a palace or something. And then let's say this will be like the courtyard. So let's say, you can imagine that maybe there's this desert that goes all the way through, and once you get over, there's, for some, weird reason, this nice plush grass, and then I could put in maybe water or something, and it's like an oasis in the middle of this, and maybe it's the player comes in and sees this as his saving grace from being stranded out here for whatever reason in the desert, and then turns out that everything in here is not what it seems, or there's some sort of trap, or maybe it's abandoned and it's now booby trapped, something like that. So you can always let your imagination run wild with that kind of stuff. I'm just gonna get rid of that for right now. All right. So we have a circle brush with an alpha brush. As you can see, the alpha brush is going to turn things around so you can get a lot better uneven landscapes. But once again, you got to make sure that when you're doing this, see how it's all blocky. So we have our texture over here. You got tool strength. So if you change it, it's gonna do different stuff to the blocks or whatever. Change it back to the default. So you have this. It has this black and white here, so it's saying that one of these areas, the white is 1. Black is 0. The reason is that white is all the colors combined, so every value is at an absolute 1. Black is the absence of light, so all of the colors on the color scale will be 0. When I mean color scale is R, B, and G. Put this in perspective in case you're unfamiliar. I'm just going to create this real quick just to show you, give you a little idea. Okay. So you don't have to worry about this at this moment. This is a material editor. If you right click and create, just click on this material, it'll create something called new material. You can name it what you want, and we will go over that later. In a later video. This is just to give you an idea of why I'm talking about the black and the white, the color, and how it's going to relate later. This will help you out. So right here I created what's called the 3 vector. 3 vector simply gives you 3 values. And these values will be 0 through 1 for X, Y, and Z, essentially. You can think of it that way, or you can think of it as right here, R, G, and B. So in this way, these vectors are referring to 3 colors. Okay, so as you can see, R, G, and B are all 0 right here, and that's why you get black. If I change R to 1, red, it will become 1. Oh, sorry, it will become red. Same thing with green and blue. Change 1 to green, R back to 0, and it's green. And then obviously if blue is 1 and everything else is 0, it's green. So you can start mixing colors by adding different values. So red and green make yellow. Throw a tiny splash of green in there, or blue in there. You got a little off-white yellow. And you can just start playing with the values, give you different colors. You can always go over 1 if you want. It'll give you like a extra, extra, extra green. So you could say, I want this really green with like a dash of red. But essentially, if you do it 0 through 1, 0% to 100%. For this purpose too, if you wanted to, you can hit this button. It'll bring up the color wheel, and then if you're using this, you can pick exactly the color that you want. And so you could pick, okay, I want red, and then I wanted a certain shade of red, like a lighter on the lighter spectrum or the darker spectrum, and then you can move it that way. So you have a lot of control over here, and you can move these in the directions that you want, and they will change in real time accordingly around the wheel. Okay, so that's your color wheel color picker. But R, G, and B. So these are the three colors that all colors are based off: red, green, and blue. And if they are all 1, meaning a full value of 1, they will be white. How does this relate to this? When we have white here and black here, it's going to say this has a value of 1. This has a value of 0. So as you can see how it's only those 2 boxes out of the 4? You can see a line. If you look really closely on the blue, you can see a little white line going around it, and then it'll go past the blue, and you can see that's where the white is. So it's only going to raise up those 2, because only those 2, the white boxes, have a value of 1. So it's saying, hey, let's raise these 2. And for this specific purpose, it's doing that, just to give us a specific effect. And then by rotating it, it'll give us all these different undulations, as they call it. So let's say I like that, okay, but I want to smooth it out. Change my brush size. And I'm gonna take my strength down. I want it to keep a little bit of that rockiness, but I really want to make sure it's a little more natural looking. I don't want everything to be all stretched. So environmental creation is a real art, as you can see. It takes a lot of time, depending on what you're trying to achieve, what look you're going for. Right now we have almost 0 assets other than that one rock in here, so we don't have a whole lot we're working with here. And I think maybe in this video I'll show you we can pull in maybe some assets, and you can see how it'll work then. Because if you're building the environment, you're probably going to have an idea of like, okay, I can put a tree here or there. If you're doing it with all the BSP, which you very well could, or the meshes in the basic, like we said before, you could put like a cone out here. Sorry, blow up this cone. And you could make your tree that way or whatever and do the duplicates, which all works good. I did that in another video, in case you're wondering if you didn't watch it. Just took like 3 cones, stacked them right on top of each other, and make like a low poly looking tree with a cylinder as the tree trunk. So we use that alpha brush and the circle brush. Oh, I'm sorry, and the pattern brush. So we got the smooth, the linear, the spherical. So linear. I'm going to turn this tool up so we can see it more. Some of these work very similar, or they're just slightly different in their usage. So that'll definitely give you more of a straight line and fall off, because this one will keep smoothing, and then it'll stop in whatever like kind of area it's in. See, like it'll go on a slant like that. Spherical. It'll just go all the way around. So it's gonna go around. You can see it's kind of like going up and down, like it's going around that area. Tip. I've actually never used tip. So let's see exactly what it'll do. Let's blow one of these areas up. Go back to my circle. kind of round it off the top a little bit. Let's go bigger with our brush size, since we're just doing a test on it. So I'll go bigger over there. I'll take my tool strength down, my brush size down over here. Looks like it does a more extreme version of just that one box area. So if you're looking to maybe get a more fine detail, a very specific one, it looks like it'll do that pretty well. Let me do a quick smooth here. The one thing I'm doing is just wiggling it over left and right. See, if you look at that, it's like, okay, that's really unnatural. I'm just going to take it down. And if I do the smooth, it will kind of get it to more even ground, so where it makes more sense. Oh, this other one flatten, and that'll just flatten it completely. It'll give you a whole crater. So you could do that if you're looking for, like, what if you come in this area and then there's this valley that leads out the other way. You know, I got these mountains. Maybe I'll bring my brush size down, and then maybe there's just this path. And this is maybe this is the entrance way of where the player was coming, you know. Maybe the player starts right here and they can't get back this way, but you could set it up to where they know. I mean, or you could do it, because I could play here. You could play anywhere on the landscape, anywhere there's solid ground. Let's see. Like, that distance would take forever to get to the where the actual level is, unless I made this part of the level. It is very possible. So that was, instead of sculpt and smooth, we have flatten. So that's all it does, it just flattens it. You can set the level to which it's going to flatten. Sorry, there it is, flatten target. So now it's only going to flatten to a certain area. And then look at it's actually raising that area because it says, okay, we're going to make everything this specific tool size, or I'm sorry, this specific target size. So my tool strength, if I turn that up. Let's see, brush size, make that way bigger. Okay. So yeah. Make my brush size bigger with my flattened target, and I create my target, and I can set exactly, you know, how high I want this. So let's say I didn't want that, I can fill that all in. And like anything else, if you're like, I didn't mean to do that, I don't want to do that, or I just don't like the result, Control Z, I'll take it back, and Control Z goes pretty far back usually. Sometimes you just get unlucky, and it only goes back so far. But for the most part, you can get pretty lucky and go pretty far back with it. So I'm going to take my brush size back down to whatever the default was. So that was flatten, and that's flatten target. Right here, flatten mode, it had it on both. So that means, you know, if I have my flatten target it's going to set it to that size because it's on both. If it's on lower, it's only going to lower it to that size. It's not going to raise any. It's not raising anything. And I can do the opposite. I only want to raise it. You know. So you have a lot of options. There's a lot of ways to change what you do on the fly. Interval. I don't know if that's something you really want to use. It might go back and forth a little too much for you. And I've honestly never used Terrace. Ramp. Let's see. So ramp is you just click somewhere. And then click in another spot. Wherever you want. Up, down, left, right. You know. Ramp tool. Add ramp, ramp width. So it's going to give you all these options before you create this thing. Let's see, I want to get this wide. Sorry if this is bothering you guys. Apologize. Sometimes I forget. I just start working, forget about the size of my screen. Add ramp. And there you go. Now you got a ramp. That simple. All right. So if I want to go back, if I want to play, I have to go. Sometimes you have to switch back to like place mode or whatever. This ramp is obviously too steep. So let's say. So I could do that. I could say. Another ramp inside of a ramp or something. Yeah, you get really weird. So. And then you can just smooth it out if you want. Yeah. So you have tons of options where if you decide I don't like what I did there, well you can change it really quickly, make it suit your needs. So yeah, I put like 2 ridiculous ramps in there and then I just smooth it out and it kind of has a little bit more of a natural look to it. Hydro erosion. It's supposed to simulate erosion. I've never used it, to be quite honest. Rain amount. It might take a lot to actually see the level of detail on those, and it might also depend on the lighting itself. So, but you can see you have all your standard details. If it's something you're interested in, you can just play around with it. There are so many different options in Unreal in general that a lot of times, depending on exactly what you're looking for, you just have to kind of fiddle around with all the different parameters. Because like this hydro erosion tool is just saying, okay, like what would this look like if it did get rained on constantly? But the rain would be a completely different effect. You'd have to put that in there. So I guess if you had a rain effect, then you'd probably want to play with this hydro erosion tool. And it might depend on what you're trying to render too. If you're rendering an environment scene where it's just a shot where you're trying to make a photorealistic shot of the environment, then you might want to definitely put some of that hydro erosion tool and get your light set up properly to do a high rendering of it. All right. Noise. Noises should just add uneven like distributions and kind of unnatural textures to it. They usually give it a lot more realistic life to it. Oh, let's just do add. So that's only going up. Let's see what happens when we go sub. It's going to go down. So that's why it's like, it's kind of, when we're doing both, it's kind of doing whatever it wants. You're kind of saying, hey, give me some randomness in here. Looks kind of cool, actually. If it was like a giant, maybe slab of rock. If I had a smoother rock, put it right there. All right. Visibility. I've literally never used this one at all. Let's say landscape visibility mass node here. Okay, so yeah, you need a material for that one specifically. And now it's like, okay. Okay, so that's everything under the sculpt area, and then depending on the tool, it'll give you the option of this circle brush or not. Paint. We have our paintbrush. Target tool, brush size. We don't have any layers here though. So I don't have anything like I can paint right now. So I wouldn't worry about this paint one. So that's pretty much everything for the landscape. I'm going to show you real quick how to, we'll import some other stuff. I'll just do some environment assets real quick.